I am Rich Wilson. I'm from northeastern Pennsylvania. I've been hunting with a crossbow since 2010. Had pretty good success with it. I have a YouTube channel, Death by Bunjie, and I like the video stuff. I like meeting people that like hunting, like talking about hunting, talking about conservation, and talking about crossbows, talking about video, all that good stuff. So that's how I got into it. That's the reason I keep doing it.
But did you just decided to pick up a crossbow and go hunting, or did you have previous hunting experience?
Previous hunting experience. I grew up in northeastern Pennsylvania. I grew up as a rifle hunter, hunting with a rifle, almost exclusively. I mean, everything we ever did was with a rifle. And that's quite different in northeastern Pennsylvania from hunting with archery equipment. Mm-hmm. In fact, when I was a kid, archery equipment was not popular. Almost nobody hunted with archery.
Was it technically legal, or
yes.
Was just okay?
It was legal. It was in its infancy stage, early stages, but it was legal. But there were very few people who had, in the 1980s, the proper equipment and the skills to do a good job with it.
Yeah. I guess there wasn't as much information. Oh wait, there was no YouTube back then.
No YouTube at all. No. YouTube 10 years maybe, but no YouTube. But everybody hunted with a rifle, and that's how I got into hunting. And I got essentially into the crossbow because I wanted to enjoy archery seasons. And it was made legal in 2009. That was the first year that we had it legal here in Pennsylvania. And crossbow.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it became part of. It was legalized. You didn't have to have a special permit if you were handicapped or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
It was made legal for all archery seasons in 2009. So the following year, I bought a crossbow and started hunting with it.
And it's the same crossbow that you hunt with, or you've upgraded at some point?
Same crossbow.
Same crossbow.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us what is that crossbow? And I guess we don't have it.
We don't have it. I should have brought it.
But I will, with your permission, I will include a couple short clips out of your videos, perhaps just to show. Tell us about that crossbow a little bit. My crossbow
it's a recurve crossbow. It's a 2010 Excalibur Axiom. Bought it brand new back in 2010. $600 for a package at that time. Came with arrows, quiver, scope, the whole bit. It's 305 feet per second. Mm-hmm. So it's not the fastest by any means. There are plenty of faster crossbows on the market, but it is kind of like the industrial model. It's very durable, very simple, gets the job done. I haven't had any problems with it. I've changed the strings myself probably 3 or 4 times total, and done all the work on it myself. Works great.
Yeah, and even though I do not have a recurve crossbow, but I've watched your videos about maintaining your crossbow, and I've learned a lot.
Oh, thank you.
So
I'm glad.
So you switched. You got a crossbow, and you started. Were you successful the very first year?
Yeah.
Were you?
Yeah, it took me the entire our archery season in Pennsylvania. I refer to it as the 37 days of awesome because it's 37 days long. Right. And so I actually shot my first deer with a crossbow on the last day. It was November 12th. I think it was almost the last day of my first archery season. So I went out probably 15 times, 20 times before that, afternoons or mornings. Had no success. But I saw a deer.
Right.
But I finally got it done on November 12th of 2010. I'll never forget the date. It was almost the end of the season, but I shot a nice young buck that day and got it done.
Yeah, and ever since you've been pretty much.
I've gotten deer every year with it. Yeah, multiple deer actually every year.
Yeah. All right. Well, so there's got to be something that made you, well, first of all, choose the crossbow and then stick with it, and up until today, and it doesn't sound like you're thinking about switching to anything else.
It's easy. Every time I look at the new crossbows, I start thinking, oh, I've got to upgrade because this other crossbow is so fast and so and it's then I go out and I target shoot with my crossbow, and I realize I've got a really good setup, and I might as well just stick with what I got. It's very tempting to buy one of the newer crossbows, but one of the reasons I like the crossbow is because I can hunt with it here in Pennsylvania in every season and get really, really good at it because I'm using the same instrument every time.
Yes,
practice makes perfect.
Yeah,
and that's one of the reasons that I do it. That's for the same reason I don't want to have multiple crossbows. I can do the work on this one. It's durable. It's lasted this long. No signs of wear to be a problem.
I think it also. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I would imagine that it also gives you that additional confidence because you know this weapon so well, you've used it so much. It just there's a psychological thing to it probably too.
Comfort level.
Comfort. Well, yeah. Well, let's tell us more about the reasons you decided and you still stick to crossbow and hunt with a crossbow. Can you name some other reasons?
Oh, sure. Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things that I've come to love about the crossbow is that you can get a lot closer to deer. With rifle hunting, the way I grew up, when you were rifle hunting, 20 different guys would get together and we would push deer through the woods. We'd do deer drives, and then people would sit on hedgerows, and when the deer ran out, we would shoot at the deer. And I have enjoyed the fact that I grew up that way, but it is so much more special to me to sit and wait for deer and have interactions with deer. Deer over food plots that I grew, I get to watch those deer, and you get comfortable with and kind of understand the different deer families, the different deer groups as they're coming into the food plots. And when they come in, you kind of recognize them a little bit. And I tell my family that I spent, that I'm out there having dinner with the ladies or something like that, because it's the does that come in every night that you'll see. But you get comfortable with it that way, and you get this sort of a up close and personal, almost like a relationship with these deer. And it's a lot more up close and personal exposure to deer than you would get with a rifle, in my experience. And that's one of the things I really, really appreciated. That's what stuck with me this entire time.
So you're saying that basically by being able to observe them much closer in their natural habitat, and when they're not running away from dogs or people, you get to appreciate and you get to see how much more interesting those creatures are.
Right.
Because prior to, and I know what you're talking about when you're talking driving, because where I grew up, it's to say they still do it. It's just number one, well, not number one, but one of the most popular ways of hunting. But all you get to see is just a glimpse of something brown running by, and you hope to hit it with buckshot.
And it's not just here, but it's in Europe. They hunt wild boar that way, very common.
Absolutely.
And they hunt a lot of animals that way elsewhere. Pennsylvania's not unique in that, but it's definitely been a big part of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And there's, again, just like I said, there's nothing wrong with that, but except for one thing, I think hunters who do that, they're missing out.
I think so too. Yeah, it's not wrong.
Yeah.
And I don't object to people hunting that way, but I think they are missing. Yeah. I mean, and that's why I started the YouTube channel, is because I want to share with people. Hunting. That's one thing about archery, is you're kind of alone a lot of times. Maybe you sit in a blind with someone else, but if you're in a tree stand, you're usually alone. Whereas with rifle hunting, you're usually around friends and family a lot more. One of the reasons I started the YouTube channel was to expose the world to how awesome this is to go out there and sit alone and what and see the deer up close like that.
Yeah, and just kind of wrap it up on the first one is, I want to kind of add that same thing here. When I switched to archery, bow hunting, it's the same thing happened to me. All of a sudden, I realized that this whole deer thing is a lot more than meets the eye, or but you know what I'm saying. But and then I started to learn more about him, because I was like, well, I want to be able to get closer. And then you learn one thing and another, and you learn more about their behavior, about their biology and habits, and all kinds of things. And then that's when you really start appreciating.
There's no end to what you can do to learn more about it and enjoy it and get into it even deeper.
Yeah, but one thing you said that's not every hunter would probably be able to handle is being able to sit sometimes all day long or many hours in a row. And that does require some discipline.
It does.
Yeah. We mentioned that before, and I kind of want you to talk a little bit about discipline and how important it is when it comes to hunting with crossbow.
There are several things that you've got to take into account when you're hunting with a crossbow or any archery equipment that require discipline. You've got to take scent-free showers, make sure that your clothing is washed in scent-free detergents. I get in a regimen, get in a routine, and I always do it the same way all the time, so that I'm making sure that all of my clothing is scent-free. And I take the same shower the same way every time, so that I am as scent-free as possible the minute I step into the woods. In addition to the scent-free stuff, you have to make sure that your equipment is up to snuff. It isn't enough to go get the rifle out of the gun cabinet and assume that it's the same as it was last year. With the archery equipment, I try to fire at least once a week, 2 or 3 times a week, to make sure it's still sighted in properly. When you're in the field and you get presented with a deer, you have to sit quietly. That takes discipline, because if you don't, with archery equipment, you can't shoot at a running deer. With a rifle, if you're making noise and you kick a deer out, it runs away, or any animal, you could probably still get a shot at it.
Especially if you're using buckshot.
Right. Little more forgiving. With a crossbow, you get one shot, With archery equipment, you might get a follow-up shot with a bow, but not shooting at a moving target with archery equipment is asking for trouble.
Yes.
So you have to wait for a good shot, and it takes a tremendous amount of discipline. People, we wait all year for this opportunity, and when the deer is finally there, you want to take this shot, but it takes a tremendous amount of discipline, and it's taken me a long time to get this way, several seasons to get to the point where I can say, if I don't get the perfect shot, I'm not going to take the shot. It takes discipline to actually say, no, I'm not going to pull the trigger because it's just not right.
So it's not just waiting for the animal to stop. It's important for it to stop and turn
properly. You preferably a broadside shot, ideally maybe a little bit quartering away for me so that I can
kind of
get the right shot
behind the shoulder.
Behind the shoulder and sort of angling into the lungs, into the vital organs. Is best.
Yeah, so that's one of the examples of discipline, and again, I completely agree with you. It's not easy, but when you master it, although I don't know if you can master, but when you get better at it, that's an achievement right there too.
Well, I think so, and you know when you're doing it well, I can go home to my family and be happy about what I did in the woods and tell them about it. It's like everything else in life. If you cut corners and take shots you shouldn't take, you run the risk of going home and having to spend all night looking for a deer and being disappointed with yourself and everything else. You can avoid that with a little bit of discipline, only taking good shots.
Yeah. And then the best thing with that is, which might not always apply, but in the majority of cases, I believe, especially in the areas that I hunt, if I don't make a shot, and if the deer didn't even know that I was there, I'll probably have another chance.
Yeah. Now you did something right. If you can sit all night and look, I have sat in a food plot and watched deer come into the food plot and leave, and then wait an extra hour and go home, and they didn't even know I was there. And that's an accomplishment.
Now imagine if you tried and you shot one and you hit it in a leg or something. It's gonna run off. It's gonna probably spoil that spot for you for, who knows, 1 week, 2 weeks or something. I've read somewhere, actually, going back to what we talked about, the signs about behind deer behavior. When we spook them, you've seen those tails going up, right, and they're running away. Somewhere I've read, and I don't know if it's true 100% or not, but somewhere I've read that they have certain glands somewhere under that tail, and when they run away, not only they run away and wave that tail to tell other deer that, hey, there's danger, they actually
release odor,
scent, some sort of a
warning,
and that's how they mark this place for other deer to stay away from this area because there was a threat there. So that's something I've read. I don't know if it's 100% true or not, but it kind of makes sense.
It would not surprise me. I've watched deer,
and we know how many different glands and how many different spots they have, and they use scent for
off their foreheads,
everywhere. Yeah. So they use scent and their nose for communication. So that wouldn't surprise me that they do. So if you miss a deer, completely miss, right? We're not even talking about so he's going to die somewhere later. No, but still, you kind of ruin your spot. And if you have to go back to work, in a couple of days, you only have this many days to hunt, then it's just another reason you want to practice discipline.
And discipline, even if you are going to hunt a particular stand, I take into account the wind, for example. And I've got, I always have these tree stands. I cannot wait. I've waited all year. I can't wait to go sit in those tree stands. But if the wind is not right, you have to be disciplined enough to say, I'm not going to that tree stand today. I'm going to either not going to hunt or I'm going to hunt in this other spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'm sure if we think about it a little more, I'm sure we can come up with other examples. So discipline is huge. Yeah, it's huge. And again, once we become more disciplined while bow hunting, it kind of sort of spills over into the rest of our lives. We can become more disciplined in other things, work-related, family-related.
I agree.
Things like that. All right. What else? Is there anything else that, as far as the reasons why crossbow?
Other reasons to hunt with to why you might want to look into getting a crossbow. I think I did a video on YouTube and I wrote down some notes real quick. I'll just review them real quick. I went back and watched the video. It only came out a few weeks ago, but there are. One of the things I like about Pennsylvania, and you'd want to check where you hunt.
Right.
But here in Pennsylvania, I can use the crossbow during the archery season for the entire length of that season. I can use it for the entire length of our 2-week rifle season.
Okay.
I can use it for the entire late season. So basically, whenever you can hunt deer in Pennsylvania, you can hunt deer with a crossbow here in Pennsylvania. And most states are going in that direction.
Yes.
I don't know that they're there yet, but they're getting in that direction.
Yeah, in Virginia it's the same way. So
Okay.
you basically get, if you were hunting with a firearm, you have only a few weeks, a couple of weeks.
Okay.
And then if you're with bow or crossbow, all of a sudden you have so many more opportunities to hunt.
Right.
I'm not saying that you have better chances of getting anything, but
It's difficult to hunt with a crossbow during the rifle season. That is not easy
that's
to do
another thing.
because,
Yeah.
especially in Pennsylvania, we have at times there were times when we had 1 million people going into the woods with rifles during rifle season.
Which
it stirs
actually-
up the deer a little bit.
And actually, that brings up another good point that you mentioned in that particular video that you just referenced. What happens when it's a firearm season and you're hunting with a crossbow on your piece of land on this little, or not, doesn't matter the size, but you know that you're with a crossbow and your neighbors are hunting with a rifle or any kind of firearm. And so the season opens and then the whole hell breaks loose at your neighbor's properties. So what do deer do trying to escape that? They come to your property, right?
They do, and if you don't have a lot of people, a lot of scent, a lot of noise, they won't suspect you're there perhaps. They will spend more time there. You're almost hunting in a spot. What I try to do is even though I'm hunting there, allow my place to serve somewhat as a sanctuary for the deer so that they feel safer. And it does give the deer that are willing to spend some time on your property, gives them more of a chance of surviving the rifle season.
True too, yeah, absolutely. What else? Remind me if we're missing something.
One of the things that I put down a couple other things that I talk about when and this isn't for everybody necessarily, but I put down introspection. And what I mean by that, I spend time all day long at work working with people and dealing with people. I have clients. I'm a lawyer. That's my job, actually. And I spend all day long, week after week, working with people, which I love doing. But I think everybody needs something to break their routine. I think that's healthy. And for me, being out there, whether it's this time of year working on food plots or whether it's hunting season, spending time alone in a tree stand, gives me a chance to spend some time alone and actually think about my life and straighten out things in your head. It gives you some alone time, and I think people need that. I think that's a healthy thing. Not everybody needs to do it with hunting, but hunting can provide that. Being out in nature gives you that opportunity like nothing else, and that's one of the things I've really appreciated. It's one of the reasons I've appreciated archery seasons as opposed to running around with a rifle like I did most of my life growing up, because with that you're hunting with other people. And usually that's the way we did it here. And for me to be able to sit alone with a crossbow is a big difference for me.
Yeah, it definitely gives you some alone time to think and restructure your routine. Yeah, that's.
And think about what you're going to do next season and how you're going to change things and where you want to put in a new food plot or something.
Yeah, and this kind of also one thing to add to this is, yes, bow hunting is kind of like a chess game. And you're sitting there and your mind is working, thinking, okay, based on what I see, based on what I've experienced, and I see how their patterns are changing, these are the changes I need to make next year. So your mind is constantly trying to solve
a puzzle.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think hunting can be viewed as a intellectual activity. What is it, like not like training your brain kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, not everybody would agree, but I believe so. I do believe so. That bow hunting definitely gets your mind working a little harder.
I think so, and I think there are people just like anything else who maybe don't use their brain enough when they go out and try and do this stuff. But I think that everybody benefits from that. It definitely
I
makes your experience
should
better.
say that if you want to be a successful bow hunter,
So your chances are going to improve for sure.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. Anything else?
Just two other things. I'm just looking over my list here real quick. I'm cheating a little bit.
No, that's good because it's been a long day for both of us. So yeah, it's good to have a little.
The filming. One thing I like about that crossbow hunting. If you're carrying a rifle, it's hard to carry a camera at the same time. With my crossbow, I can easily mount a GoPro on the scope. I can easily mount a quiet camera next to me and use it in a tree stand or in a blind. And I get to combine my hobby of filmmaking and my appreciation for cameras with the outdoors. This was one of the reasons that I started the channel is because I really like video stuff. I've been dealing with video for 10 years or so as a hobby. Ever since my daughter was little, we got a video camera and took pictures of her. And the ability to translate that, to take pictures of the outdoors and make videos out of that has been, that's been good too. It's like another hobby that you can do all year long, another way to enjoy hunting all year long, and share it with other people, and I think that's important. It's important in a global sense, in a conservation sense, to project a good image for hunting.
Yes, that's very true.
And I think that image is going to be out there of hunting no matter whether I'm on YouTube or not. But if I'm on YouTube, I can at least play a role in improving that image.
And you are playing that role.
I try.
Because what you do, and I watched, I think I didn't, well, I may have skipped a couple of the most recent videos, but for the most part, I've watched them all. And what I like is because I can relate to you. I'm the same kind of guy. Yeah, I don't get bucks every single time.
Right.
You know, but I definitely get at least a couple of those throughout the season, and it gets me excited. And then I realize, and I look, and I watch your videos, and I see you do, for the most part, same things, same things that I do, and then some, and then I can learn from you. And I don't get discouraged looking at some guy who just, there's nothing but big bucks on his YouTube channel, and you can't help but you just watch that channel and thinking, there's something I'm not
what am I doing wrong? Right?
Yeah.
But it's most people do not have that experience. I really believe that, and I'm okay with that. I mean, I grew up. We didn't have antler point restrictions in Pennsylvania until a few years ago. I mean, deer, when I was growing up, deer we never saw big bucks. I shot a buck that was probably 110 inches when I was 15 years old, and 20 years later I ran into people who were still talking about that deer. It wasn't a monster by modern standards, but for 20 years it was a big Pennsylvania buck for this area. So it's all relative like that, but I think that you can show people that it's about appreciating the outdoors and enjoying the outdoors. It's about appreciating deer. It's about sharing that experience with your family and future generations. It's not just about shooting big deer. The first thing on my channel, if you look at every video I've uploaded, said this is not a channel about shooting big bucks. That's the first thing I put in here. Because I knew when I started that channel, I knew people were going to say, well, you know, they were going to criticize. I expected, and I was actually wrong about this, I expected people to criticize me for not shooting big bucks all the time. And to be honest with you, I haven't gotten that experience. People have appreciated so there's a market for everybody. There's room for everybody.
Absolutely. You guys want
just the last thing that I had on there was just to compare it with the compound bow and archery equipment. If people want to enjoy archery seasons, but don't have, and this is totally understandable, if you don't have the hours a week necessary to become a competent bow hunter, I have nothing but admiration for people that can hunt with a compound bow. I think that's tremendous. If you can kill a deer with that, they are in a class by themselves. I mean, that's a special talent, and it takes a lot of energy and a lot of devotion to get to that point.
Exact dedication.
Dedication. That's the word. I'm a lawyer. I have a full-time job like most people, and I have a child, and I've got all these other responsibilities like a lot of people. And I have found that the crossbow for me allowed me to get into that with less of that time investment. And I think that that's good because I can enjoy the outdoors and appreciate the archery seasons. I can keep hunting alive. I can pass it on to my daughter without what in my case would be an unrealistic expectation of the amount of time you'd have to spend practicing.